A common question I get asked at the moment is all about the transition. What part of the body moves first? Once that golf club has got to the top of the backswing, what goes first? It's a really common question. A lot of golfers worry about whether the arms should go first, whether the shoulder should initiate the transition. Do the hips go first? Do we go lateral? Do we move the shift? And it can be a very confusing part of the golf swing because tips, particularly in this instance, are delivered in such different ways. If I'm talking to you as a slicer of the golf ball, the majority of golfers that slice it will actually end up moving from the shoulders and rotating and putting the club on the outside. So if I'm delivering a golf tip to you, I'm going to try and give you a slightly different feeling. So I want you to feel like you're initiating the transition with just your arms and not even using your lower body at all, because golfers that slice it will often use the shoulders, but also the hips will rotate, and they'll rotate that way out towards the golf ball. So that's one of the worst things we can do to encourage you to slice it. So what I would try and coach you is the feeling of the arms going down first and then encouraging the rotation afterwards. So I think it's really important when I'm answering this question, I'm going to give you the answer based on how we would deliver the golf club in a really nice neutral way. So if you are a slicer, you've probably got to think about it in a slightly different way, because I'm trying to give you a slightly different feel. If you're a hooker, not one of those, then you're often using your arms first and getting the club on the inside too much, and then you're going with the body. So if you hook the golf ball, I would probably encourage you to use your shoulders first in the transition, so we can keep the club more in front of the body on the way down. And that's why I think sometimes golf tips can be a little bit confusing, because they're not perfectly aimed at you watching this video, because I don't know your golf swing. So this video about the transition is how it should look, how it should be, not how it should feel, to help you correct another swing fault. So just bear that in mind when you're thinking about transition, because like I say, a lot of people ask me, do I drop my hands first? Do I drop my arms first? Do I use my shoulders first? Do I use my hips first? And the real answer, in short, is it kind of all works together. Don't forget, you're swinging the golf club at, like, let's say if you've got a 7-iron, average swing speed is about 75 miles per hour. So that's quite a fast movement, and you're doing the whole movement in less than a second. So the short answer is, well, it's all pretty much moving together. What I want you to try and feel, though, is as the swing has got to the top of the backswing, the first move, and this is a great way to practice, is that the arms are going to work back down in front of the chest and the rib cage, using the shoulders to do so. As you're doing so, your lead hip is going to push down over your lead foot, and we get into this position. So two things you'll notice with that, I'm talking about this from a pressurized perspective. I don't often coach golfers about using lateral movement. It's more of a pressurized position going down into the lead foot, but you'll notice in pressurizing from a center point, moving to the lead foot with pressure, we do get some natural lateral movement. So that's one of the key things to know as well. The combination and the relationship between lateral movement and pressure is fairly similar in some respects. So it's really important that we kind of understand that from the start. If you're swinging to the top of the backswing, you're lowering the arms down in front of your body. And I often just try and say, get the trail elbow in front of the rib cage, okay? Now, if I get the trail elbow feeling like it's in front of the rib cage, I keep my club parallel to my feet and pointing down my target line. If I let my trail elbow extend away from my rib cage, I get outside. If I let my trail elbow go behind my rib cage, I get inside, okay? So I often try and get everyone to feel that this trail elbow is working down in front of the rib cage there. And the reason why I mentioned about the shoulders, because the shoulders from here don't go in that direction. They don't go forwards, because look where this trail hip goes, well, that goes forwards, and that is a big no-no, folks. What we want to try and feel is, remember, go back to basics. Spine angle tilts forward, the shoulders are like a T position relative to spine angle, and you just get that move. So the shoulders are going to work around the spine angle, and that's really, really important to understand. And that's why sometimes these classic old school drills are just putting the club across your shoulders. You start to see the path in which this trail shoulder should take. It works around and up, effectively behind your head, and then it works around and down, and it gets back to parallel to the target line. If I make this now an extension of my arms, then the club is working back down parallel. So you've got to be able to understand how the shoulders work. So we need to break this into 3 segments. We've got shoulders, arms, hips. Okay, they'll work pretty much on 3 different angles, because like I said already, you've got the shoulders working around the spine angle, but you've got your hips working slightly flatter. The shoulders are here, so that's the angle of my shoulders, whereas my hips are slightly flatter, but of a similar angle, because the right hip or trail hip will be higher than the lead hip, but the shoulder angle will be a little bit steeper. Then the arms are going to work more in front of the body, in front of the rib cage on the way down. A lot of this also depends on your grip position as to where the club is going to actually be. Strong grips, we tend to see the club could be a little bit more inside. Weak grips, we could have the club a little bit more on the outside. So grip position is also important, because that's the only thing that gets you your relationship with the golf club nice and tight, and you've got the control of the club if you've got the correct kind of grip. And you always hear me bark on about grip, because I do love a good grip. Okay, so one of the things we're going to try and work on, transition. We know now that we know the natural path of the shoulders should be there. Okay, we know that from the top of the backswing we pressure into the lead side, so naturally we have that little bit more lateral movement, okay, because we're pressuring forwards, we're pressuring from a center position, and we're moving the center down into the lead side, so it's naturally going to go. We know the shoulders are going to work back down on this angle that we're working on now with the club across the chest, and we know the hands are going to work in front of the rib cage, okay? So once we get those 3 things, that, my friends, is the answer to how do I make a good transition. And what I often tell people to do is get a nice checkpoint. You don't need to come down to the golf ball, just come down to waist height. If you can get this shaft of the club parallel to your feet as you look down, or an extension out to the target, then you are on plane there. And you see, as you come back down, one of the things that I can see as I look at the club, I can see my shoulder here behind my hands. Again, I don't want to see the shoulder trying to work out in front of my hands. I don't want the club to be out here anywhere, okay? So as I work down with my upper body and pressuring to the trail, to the lead foot with my lower body. And that's the key. A lot of lateral movement that I see, and one big fault is because golfers are trying to compress the golf ball, they end up moving this way. So this is what I would class as more of a lateral movement, a lack of pressure, because you get to the top of the backswing and the transition, you move your back to the target, and that's where you don't want to be. That's now lateral movement. We could say the weight's gone to the left, that we've pressured to the left, but we haven't pressured down to the left, and that's one of the key things. We're using, I often like my golfers to use the ground. Now, there are golfers out there that don't have great flexibility, durability, movement, hip rotation, etc., etc. Doesn't matter. What we're trying to do here, from here to the transition, most people can make that move, because all we're doing, as you can see, my lead hip is going over my lead foot. One thing that isn't going over my lead foot, one of the big things I want to really make a big point of in this video, is that my lead shoulder isn't going over my lead foot, okay? So we get to the top of the backswing, my lead shoulder effectively stays on top of the golf ball as I pressure to my lead foot there. So my head, spine angle has stayed over the golf ball, and then I can rotate from that position. That's a really key point within this video. We look at 3 areas of your transition. We look at how the shoulders work, we look at how the arms work, we look at how the lower body works. We combine pressure with lateral movement in the lower body, but we don't allow the upper body to laterally move across, okay? And this is why the transition is such a difficult and kind of problematic area for a lot of golfers. You get to the top of the backswing, and the majority of golfers out there think we get taught so much about rotation. You have to rotate, you have to rotate, you have to rotate. But if you rotate too early, then you're gone. Now you've got to drop, and when you drop the club down, that's how you start to swing it from out to in, and you get the slice, the dreaded slice. So really work hard on just some dry drills of just getting the club top of the backswing, lower that trail elbow into the rib cage with the trail shoulder still working around the spine angle, and let the lead hip go over the lead foot. So 1, 2, and I would do like 5 of these, because there's the old saying, my practice swing's my best swing. You know why it's your best swing? It's because there's no golf ball and you're not thinking about other area. You're not thinking about what could go wrong. And when you get over a golf shot, just do it slowly. Get there, feel that move, and just do it slowly. And you don't have to hit full golf shots when you're doing your practice session. They don't need to be full power, full swing. You've got to learn a movement before you can implement it at full speed. They talk about tennis players having like 10,000 repetitions to get it right. I'm not going to suggest you do 10,000 shots or 10,000 repetitions, but if you do have time, I won't lie, it's going to be a great help to you. But knowing the movements that you've got to do, start the process, start with shoulders, understand how your shoulders work up and down. And the golf ball here is a good reference point. So I take my setup to the golf ball, and I'm going to move my lead shoulder to the golf ball. Now the butt of the club is pointing at the golf ball as I look at it, and as I come through, the club head is pointing down at the golf ball. So I haven't lost my posture. So now I'm starting to understand how the shoulders work around the spine angle, and that is vitally important, okay? Now I'm going to feel that my weight, my transition, my pressure is moving to the lead foot as I do so. And you'll notice now my trail knee is starting to make that movement into the lead knee. 1, 2. And here now we've got a basis to work transition on. Starting to understand where this needs to be. It doesn't need to be out there. I don't want it to be too high relative to the golf ball. I want to keep it level with the golf ball as I look down. There. And now I'm transferring body weight. I'm pressurizing into my lead foot. I'm keeping my shoulders working around the spine angle plane. Then I add in my arms. 1. There, look at that. Stop that at the point of parallel to my feet. 2. Lovely. Love it. Perfect. Right. I've just created a perfect golf swing. Oh, I just absolutely pured it at slow motion, by the way. That's gone. I've hit that 50% power, carried straight into the top of the tree to 100 yards. 165 yard club's gone 100 yards. Just tap it away. What I felt then was one of the purest strikes I think I've ever felt in my life. Perfect. I know I'm on the right path. Go through that process. Shoulders, work your weight, work your arms. Shoulders, work your weight, work your arms. Put the 3 together slowly, be patient. You can do this stuff at home. You don't need a golf course. You don't need a golf ball. You don't need to hit shots. You can just work the motion in the correct way there, getting that shoulder plane down into the right position, getting the pressure, move into the lead foot, get an understanding of where the arms need to be as well. And that, my friends, is how you make an incredible transition. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and I'll see you next time.